Hello and welcome to the Wine Brothers Podcast. If you enjoy what you are listening to, feel free to support us on Patreon at Wine Brothers Podcast or follow us on Instagram at Wine Brothers Podcast, or you can keep up with us on Twitter at Wine Brothers Pod. Thank you very much. Hello, Mike. How are you?
I'm good, John. Yourself?
I'm doing great. Just in the heart of harvest right now.
Me too. The heart, yeah, that's a better place than I am, I guess.
Or the thick of it, or whatever you'd like to call it.
The thick of it. Absolutely, the thick of it.
Anywho, did you get anything in today?
Nothing in today, but I processed today. I pressed Chardonnay from Pennsylvania, and we had crushed a Barbera for our sparkling, and so that had been sitting on the skins in the cold room. And we pressed that today, too.
Was that the Chamberson? Or no, that was the Barbera for sparkling?
No, that's tomorrow. The Chamberson's going to happen tomorrow.
Oh, very cool.
I've got a lot of Chamberson in the cold room right now that we're going to be pressing tomorrow.
Oh, cool. I'm interested to see how that turns out for you. I've had good luck with it, so bon chance.
Yeah, I'm wondering how much protein instability there is, how much color will fall out, all of those things.
Yeah, I actually forgot to tell you that one time during just one random year, we were getting our one vineyard, a lot of it had died during the winter, so we only had like maybe 1.5 tons of Chamberson. We pressed the whole thing off the skins whole cluster pressed it just specifically for rosé.
Did you get any color out of it?
Oh yeah. You're not gonna have that much trouble with color. It will precipitate out.
Do you roll the press a lot, or did you just?
Our press naturally rolls during its cycle. Yeah. It's a 2-hour cycle. How long's your pressing cycle?
It depends on which cycle I choose. The sparkling cycle is like 2.5 hours, but there's no rolling. If I do a whole cluster press cycle, that one is 155 minutes. Going up to 1.8 bar.
Okay. Yeah, I did
It rolls twice on each stage, so it inflates. I think it starts at 300 millibar, deflates, rolls again at 300 millibar, deflates, rolls. So for every stage, and every time it goes up, it deflates and goes again. So.
Yeah, I guess I don't have enough experience to see how that would really affect my final wines.
I don't know. I look on the graph on the thing, and it's like very unintelligible. So I've had to kind of figure it out on my own what actually happens. The graph reads from right to left instead of left to right. It's really weird.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually did some whole cluster pressing of some Vidal today.
Oh, cool.
How do you find your yields turn out with whole cluster versus if you crush into the...
I would say, they're less, but because of this year, because we've had such water uptake out here, my God, I've been yielding 175 a ton, 182 a ton, depending on varietal.
Wow.
It's been crazy. I had Gruner that yielded 182 a ton. My Sauv Blanc was 172 a ton. It's just, man, these berries are huge.
What did your acids come in at for your Gruner?
7.2, but we made a 3 gram per liter add. So I tested it. I didn't get to test it up front.
So that was after the add?
After the 3 gram per liter add. Everything that I brought in has been under 6 grams per liter.
Wow.
That's crazy. Are you getting the same sort of thing?
Honestly, I don't think it's that drastic. I have noticed, I pressed the Vidal today, and I was like, it just kept pressing. So I assume that we got a little more, but I'm not sure. I also know I don't think we've gotten as much rain as you guys have down there, so.
Yeah, I don't know. It's been hit or miss. We missed a lot of stuff up front early in the season, but we got dumped on a few times during veraison, and I think that has really made an influence on berry sizing.
Okay. What have your acids been like on your other stuff?
Same deal, man.
Yeah.
4s and 5s. 4s and 5s. It's just been crazy.
Yeah, our Vidal, the last Vidal I measured was 5.1, which is very low for our Vidal, to be honest.
Oh, it's very low for all Vidal, right? I don't know what's going on. I was like, oh, maybe it's because we're bringing it in and it's got damage. And, like, the pHs have been really high, which is good, because last year the pHs were really high and the acids were really high, and it doesn't really leave you a lot of room.
Yeah.
But when you bring it in and the pH is high and the acids are really low, you don't freak out when you make a 3 gram per liter ad when you know it's starting out at 4 grams per liter, and you're going to be, even if it took all of it, you would still be at a good acid level, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it never takes it all. I mean, I've had to make multiple ads just to keep it, you know, I'm not adding all 3 at 3 grams per liter at the same time. I add 1.5, and then I add another 1.5 and retest. And then just to kind of zero it in, I've had to add a little bit more even to get it where I wanted it in the mid 7s, so that by the end I'm at a good range.
Yeah, funny, our acids are definitely lower than normal, but I would say our pHs are pretty average, which is
Okay.
easier for us to deal with. We haven't made any acid ads. We talked about it briefly, but our final judgment call was to do it on the back end if it needs it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm sure it's probably site dependent and fruit quality dependent too, depending on, you know, all of those things affect it. So
yeah.
But it's been when I run my initial numbers, I'm like, oh, all right, and then I just create an action plan, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, no, there's a lot of that. I'm worried about our reds because after our whites came in without most of the rain, and now our reds are getting all of this. So I took our Merlot sample. I think our TA was like 4.7, and then our bricks were like 18 or 17.5. So
yeah. I mean, we were I took them all back last week, and we were 18.7 on the 10th of September.
Okay.
And so, but here's the thing, man. The fruit looks good. And when you taste it, it tastes good. It is just weak in the sugar department. So I want to pull it in, honestly. I'm like, well, the fruit looks good. Before we start to see any rot or the birds get at it, I would just like to bring it in and see what we can do with it. Pull some Sonier, make a rosé, and then, you know, ferment it. I mean, we've got over an acre of it.
No,
I'm excited to use it. It's the first year that we'll have Malbec, and I'm excited to play with it, you know. From a tannin standpoint, like, the skins are thick compared to the other varietals that we have in the vineyard, and you can feel the tannin.
Yeah, that's
It's not
cool.
bitter, and here's the thing, like, on the 10th when I tasted it, it was like bitter green tannin, and I was like, we don't want any part of that. But now that I tasted it again today, I was like, oh, now we have, like, the grapes that I tasted were mature, smooth tannin and none of the green notes that you get on an unripe grape. So I feel like if the numbers don't say they're ripe, my palate certainly does.
How's the fruit holding up on the vine?
So the Malbec looks great.
Oh, well, that's good. And
the Barbera, I feel like, is going to start to go soon.
Does that have a little thinner skin than the Malbec?
Oh my God, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
It's paper thin. It's one of the reasons it makes such a good rosé. You know, I left that sparkling rosé on the skins in the cold room at 38 degrees for, let's see, it went in, we did it Friday afternoon. We crushed it Friday afternoon. It was there all day Saturday, all day Sunday, and we got it this morning. We pressed it this morning. So it had a significant amount of time on the skins, but because the skins are so thin and it doesn't have much tannin at all naturally, it was in good shape, and it wasn't overcolored at all. It's going to be a perfect color.
That's great. That sounds like a fun grape to play around with.
It really is, and because it retains its acidity so well late into its ripening, it just is a perfect rosé grape. I mean, when they make rosés in other countries, and they're working with varietals like Cab Franc and Cab Sauv and Merlot. You got to get it off the skins almost immediately because that tannin starts to come through. But with this, you can let it soak up that flavor as long as you need to.
What kind of yeast are you using on the Barbera?
I'm not sure yet. I was thinking about it today, and it's a sparkling wine. Do we want it to be too fruity? And at first I was like, all right, well, I can just make a neutral, use like a sparkling yeast, Zymaflor sparkling yeast up front, Zymaflor Spark, and I would just make a neutral, not super expressive, just straight sparkling base before we do the secondary fermentation. But now I'm thinking the flavors are good. I may just go and make it a fruit bomb with maybe split it and do half X5, half Vin13, and just kind of try and create just a monster fruit bomb.
Well,
it'll go away.
Don't they generally say that the primary fermentation dictates the secondary fermentation when it comes to the sparklings? So
Go ahead.
I was listening to some winemakers talk about that, and that in Champagne, they were talking about that if there's a flaw in the primary, then it's really noticeable after the secondary fermentation.
Yeah, I could understand that any flaws might be exacerbated. Yeah.
But they also said that if there's something good, that also gets.
So the first one that we made that was not me, it was the previous winemaker. It had a lot of beautiful berry red fruit coming through. And that, I think that was part of what made it so good, was that it not only did it have the sparkling, the bubbles, the acidity, and the things that you look for, the yeast influence of a sparkling, but it also had that driven berry flavor that was just wonderful. So I feel like if I don't get that stuff up front, it's not going to happen in the secondary fermentation. So I think I'm going to go.
That's kind of what I was.
I'm going to go tropical and try and get what I can from it. And if I have some volatile aromas that blow off, maybe some pineapple or some grapefruit or something that's there, and then it goes away. Oh well, at least it was there at one point,
Yeah.
And if I move fast with it, I might be able to trap that stuff in the bottle for the secondary fermentation.
Yeah. If you rack it clean and get it right into the secondary fermentation bottle. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean the lag time between getting it heat and cold stable before it gets in there, that's where I just have to move quickly with it. All right, what else you working on?
Oh, just trying to keep the winery clean.
Yeah.
We had all of our Chardonnay barrels in the winery. Luckily, they were in the winery this year, not in the cellar. And they were had a few overflow issues, but other than that, they fermented clean and they smell great. So I'm excited about that.
That is the toughest part. Yeah, go.
I'll be topping those tomorrow, and inoculating for malo, adding a malo nutrient, and I bought the AccuVin malo testing strips, so I'm going to try to monitor that as close as I can and then send it out to a lab once that I think that the malo has gotten close to being finished, so that we can really get some sulfites on that.
Right. I love those things, man. They're pricey, but they are one easy way, and they test to a really small ppm, which is amazing. Like, it's not just chromatography gives you a ballpark, but this dials it in. It's pretty nice. That guy's got a lot of cool tests that he's developed that are like pocket field test kind of things that work really well. So I have yet to barrel my Chardonnay but that'll be happening this week.
Yeah, my first fermentations whipped through. They all,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh my god.
Were you in a cold room? What temperature was your must?
The room was set at 70, but the tanks were set at 65.
Okay.
And they finished almost as quickly as the barrels. They're like a day behind.
Wow.
And I was trying to figure out a way I could cool the barrels, but there's just no.
Dry ice, man. You need dry ice. So the thing about the barrels is they have such huge insulatory quality that when that fermentation gets going, the heat is just kind of amplified inside the barrel.
Yeah.
And it just moves. And that's why you get the foam over so fast. So this year, I'm thinking that I'm going to pre-chill the barrel. Like, I'll steam it the night before, and then I'll move it into the cold room and pre-chill it, and then put the juice into it, and then inoculate in the cold room. And that way, I'm hoping things won't get away from me. Because I had the same thing last year. I used a couple of aggressive yeasts that are really good cold fermenters. I used 6 different yeasts across our barrels because I wanted to play around. And 4 of them overflowed, and then the other ones didn't even take. So I was like, all right, well, I basically had to move the good inoculate from one barrel to the next just to get it going.
Oh gosh. I had been very careful to keep my barrels well under the conservative mark this year, and they still overflowed, and I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
It's just something. I think something that happens after, because we cold stabilized, or we cold settled, and then we racked, and then I went to barrel with it, and I was assuming that there would be a little less like flocculent to make that foam, but something in the grapes this year was just extra foamy.
I noticed that in the press too. It looked like seaside foam.
Yeah.
When you see it rolling up on the beach, and you start to get that heavy, thick.
Exactly.
I noticed that in the press in the late stages. I wonder if we took up more phosphates than we did.
Yeah, maybe. It didn't even look like it was like that, like vigorous of a fermentation. It just looked like there was nothing there to break up the foam, and it just kept, oozing. It was a river. It was a river of slime.
A river of slime. I said that today. Oh my god, man! We were dumping the sparkling rosé from the satellite tank into the press, and I was yelling that because it was pink, and nobody knew what the hell I was talking about.
Yeah, I know. I imagine.
I was like, anybody? And they were like, what, is that from a movie or something? I was like, yeah man, Ghostbusters 2, get it together.
I know, seriously. It's like people rag on that movie all the time. I've heard them, and I'm like, how? That is one of the greatest movies of all time.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. It is a fantastic movie.
Or maybe it was
people
just
say, it's not as good as number 1? What? Well, obviously you didn't grow up with only having number 2 on VHS.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say.
It was incredible.
It's like, if you only had 48 movies that you cycled through that you were allowed to watch, this was one of the greatest.
This was one of the great ones.
Speaking of pink, though, I told you I went up to our home vineyard project, and I picked my Frontenac Gris, and I was very excited. I got it 23.5 bricks on my second leaf, which...
That's incredible, dude.
Yeah, it was only a half bucket full, so we weren't bringing in the big...
I don't care, man. Do you understand how rare that is? That no one in the Mid-Atlantic region, no one in Virginia, no one has brought anything in over 20 bricks this year.
Even Frontenac?
Kudos to you. I don't know if anyone's growing Frontenac, but any vid is vinifera, or even hybrids like Novidal has come in that high.
The few berries...
I don't know what ours is going to come in at, but I'll let you know on Wednesday when we pick it.
The few berries of Marquette that I had, I got up to 22.5 on the refractometer.
That's great, man.
But I was but back to the pink. I pressed all of the Frontenac Gris, and it was so pink. and I didn't know.
Really?
Well, I put the Marquette in with it,
Okay.
and there were only a couple of clusters.
So
I'm
I will tell you
wondering
something.
if it
Go
could
ahead.
be from those, like, 3 or 4 clusters that were in there that turned the whole thing pink, or if it
Yes.
was from this. You think so? Okay, because it was funny. I squeezed the berry onto the refractometer, and the juice was pink, and I was thinking, wow, a lot of color in this, because I've never really worked with Marquette or Frontenac Gris, but I was really.
So the Frontenac Gris was pink too, or no?
No, the Frontenac Gris has these dark, like brown berries almost. I can send you a picture, or I can post a picture on the YouTube video of the
Please
grapes,
do.
that I was picking. But they're like these
So-
dark. It looks like Pinot Gris, but on steroids as far as color. That like
Okay.
kind of dark brown kind of thing they get going on.
Right. You mean sour rot? So what I found, my buddies grow Marquette here in Maryland, and oh my God, is it dark! It leaches color. It is the darkest thing ever. I saw some videos that they had on their website of it. It is so incredibly dark, and when you're picking it out of the field, incredibly dark. So you would see it would influence it that much. It really would.
Okay, so maybe that's why it's pink. I've seen some
And in the
commercial.
juice phase, you're not going to get like natural pinking that you would get from certain white grapes. After they've been fermented, can show some of that pinking.
Yeah. Well, and I've
After
seen
fermentation, you would see that, but not as juice.
I've seen some Frontenac Gris on the market that were dark, looked like oxidized, but clearly weren't from tasting them. But they had a ton of color in them, and I imagine that that's probably just skin contact.
Skin contact.
But they were good wines. That's why I was optimistic when I started growing this, because they had.
What are you going to do with it? Do you know?
So I've got some people handling the fermentation because I didn't take it back with me to Philly.
You've got people?
I've got people, and anyways, so we're going to rack it. The fermentation's almost done. So we're going to rack it into like a growler so there's no headspace, and then I'm going to bring up some.
Okay.
There we go. We're back in business.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm going to bring up some bottles that I can crown cap, and then I'm going to add probably a small amount of sugar and do a slight and maybe a little nutrient add and see if I can't get a little bit of sparkling.
Yeah, phosphate tea trays. That's what I used as my nutrient, and some DAP. Both
Yeah, I'm probably just going to throw a little bit of DAP in. It's such a small quantity for a bottle,
Right. Yeah. Well, you'll be able to microdose the sugar just perfectly then.
Yeah, I know.
So that'll be fun.
Yeah, I know. I was bummed out.
You won't have to worry about homogenizing the whole tank and keeping it rolling while you're filling. You can just squirt a couple of things in.
So I was bummed out. I had my people up there, so mom and dad mainly, to pick all these grapes, and there were barely any.
Oh, jeez.
I mean, I warned them in advance, but. Anywho.
Well, believe me, if there was a shit ton of grapes on those vines, they wouldn't come back, probably.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm hoping is
just
next
ease
year.
them into it. Ease them into it.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping next year. They'll be like, oh my god, picking was so easy last year, and next year I'm gonna crop like 4.5 tons per acre and really just hammer it to them.
Oh man.
I really need to get a sprayer up there, though. I've been looking everywhere to see if I can't get a cab tractor and a sprayer, because if we add what we're planning on adding next year, we're gonna have to start a winery, Mike, because I'm gonna have so many grapes. I'm not gonna know what to do with them all.
Can you? Let's see. I don't know. They have those tow behind ones on a 4-wheeler, but yes, the cab tractor with the sprayer is the way to go for sure.
Well, I'm hoping But if I can't get a cab tractor and a sprayer, I can just spray a bunch of really non-toxic things to
You
keep.
can stylet oil you can try with to keep most of the powdery mildew at bay. But
I
if you
just
get
need
any
to.
fungus, I don't know what you'll do.
Yeah, I know. I need to. The sprays I'm more worried about are the ones in the first couple in the beginning of the season. Like, I've seen a few hints of phomopsis out there, so that happens in the first couple weeks. So I got to figure out a spray that I totally screwed up this year. I wasn't up there for the times, and I didn't spray when I was up there. I was putting in posts
It's a 3.5
and
hour
things.
drive, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a ways. It's a ways.
Well,
So
anywho, but it was exciting, and
you'll
I'm
get
excited.
there. Hopefully, nothing will overwinter on you.
Oh, I know. Jeez. Knock on wood. No, I was excited though because I had the fermentation going by the time I left, and it was smelling great. You know, I was getting some nice tropical fruit, and I actually had a little bit of juice left over, and I poured it for like a little wine glass cocktail for everybody, and it had like these really cool watermelon kind of notes to it. It was delicious.
Nice.
I'm really excited to see what I can make out of that.
I had a Pinot Gris rosé go with a little watermelon note last year, and it was really cool.
Oh, that's cool.
I liked it. Yeah.
But I'm beat. I don't know about you. I've been working some long hours on both
Me too,
sides, personal and at the winery.
I've been working convenience store hours, man, like 7 to 11. It's been tough. It's been tough. I finally got out early today. Like, I was like, oh man, I really should make that ad, and then I was like, I'll do it tomorrow. And I left at 6:30.
This is the first year that I've had people at the winery. So like, I have like a couple of guys working for us now that are doing a lot of the vineyard work. So it's really been helpful. So like, instead of being out there in 95-degree heat picking all day, and then when the grapes come up, I have to clean everything and press all night. I've cleaned everything and have it ready, and when the grapes come up, we can just dump them right in, and I'm, pressing immediately or crushing and destemming, and it's been a lot nicer than in years past.
Yeah, I feel like last year, it was my first year working at such a big facility with all of those custom crush clients, and now I kind of I've got all these spreadsheets laid out, so when the fruit comes in, I get the weight, and I plug in the weight and the estimated yield, and everything I need propagates for me, and I can just tweak it if I need to, and it's just streamlined the process. And now when people throw me curveballs, like, oh, Mike, we're bringing in this, and I was like, oh, really? That wasn't on your fermentation plan? Oh, well, I'll find a place for it. Like, I'm not as panicked as I used to be about
Yeah, that kind of happened to me today. That Vidal that showed up, I was like, so... when are we getting this in?
and then it showed up today.
Yeah, and then it showed up half hour later.
Yeah, but, and some things fell off the menu too, because people were like, "Oh, we're getting this," and then they call me up and they're like, "Turns out fruit went to S. We're not getting it now." So things showed up, things got taken out. And I'm sure it'll be like that for the rest of the season, just because of the rainfall that we're getting. A lot of the berries, I'm talking to some people, and a lot of the grapes are just falling off the rakuses. And one day it's all there, and then the next day it's all fallen off.
Yeah, one weekend it's all there, and then the next weekend a turkey has eaten all the grapes off your grapevine. That happened to me.
Well, I mean, I know it happens. I saw it last year when we were picking the Pinot Gris. You touched it and the berries exploded, or you touched it and the berries just fell off in your hand. I'd never seen anything like that before. So it's just one of the challenges.
Well, it's a winemaker's year this year, that's for sure.
Yeah, we'll show who's got skills and who is only dreaming.
We did such a good job in the vineyard this year, and then like the whites came in for us really well, but the last 3 weeks are going to be tough.
Yeah, agreed. So we'll just
Well, I'll have to get back to you in the next week or so, and we can have another update. When I might be getting I might be getting Merlot in this week, so that'll be a whole nother talk, and I can talk to you about our new equipment because we've got.
Oh, you got some new toys?
Oh yeah, peristaltic pump and our crusher to stemmer's all new, and it's a lot more gentle on the fruit, so it's been exciting. I'm curious to see how that's going to pan out in the final.
Yeah, I think our big addition this year is the at ground level cold room. So we have a 30 by 30 building that has commercial refrigeration in it, and we can just chill things right down. So last year we rented a reefer truck, but it was really hard to get into because it was so high off the ground. And this year, I can just pallet jack everything I need to around. It's amazing.
That'll help you quite a bit. That's nice.
Oh, it's great. And like when people come in with fruit at 10 p.m. because they've been picking all day, we just roll it in there, and it's not a big deal. It takes the frantic nature away from having to press immediately, you know. So, all right, man. Well, good luck.
All right, bon chance.
We'll catch up next week.
Definitely. Happy harvest.
Yep. Keep those nutrient ads coming.
Yep. I'll talk to you in a bit.
All right, man. See ya.
All right. Bye-bye. Thank you for listening to the Wine Brothers podcast. If you enjoyed what you were listening to, you can support us on Patreon, follow us on Instagram at Wine Brothers Podcast, or follow us on Twitter at Wine Brothers Pod. Thank you very much.